All right, good. Now, one last thing to set the levels. Would you sing a song real quick?
Yes. Is there a particular type of song you would like?
Something show-tuney.
Okay.
Because you know my affinity
For show tune.
for the show-tune.
Let's see. One singular sensation, every little step she takes. Ba-da-da-da-da-da. One. Dubby-dooby-dubba, every step that she takes. One smile and suddenly nobody else is here.
Don't stop.
You know you'll never be lonely with you. Na, na. One moment in her presence, and you can forget the rest. For the girl who's second best to none, son. Ooh, ha, give her sensation. Do I really have to mention she's what key am I in now? One. Yeah.
You're a monkey.
I'm a monkey.
That's the key.
Oh.
All right, we got it, man.
All right.
All right, I think we're ready to go, man. Are you
Yep.
ready to go?
I'm ready to
You
go.
want some of this?
You or that?
The experience.
Oh, always, every day.
All right. Love it. I'm going to hide my coffee behind there.
I love it. Are you going to drink the coffee? Because
Yeah.
if you drink it, then...
I should probably, I'm just trying to clean it. I'm trying to clean the set.
All right.
All right, so you are an experienced podcast interviewee.
I am.
Have you ever been a podcast interviewer?
I have not.
I have 5 times. You're number 6.
Yay.
And so today, I'll tell you how I'm going to throw it down. We're going to chat it up. We're going to chat it up about you, which is your favorite topic. Second favorite.
Second. I was about to say.
Who's your first favorite topic?
You.
That's right. And so we'll talk about growing up in the land of Bucky,
red buck.
the red buck.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about childhood and teachers and teaching and
Great.
those who have
Good.
impacted your life and has caused you to wear costumes every day. And we will talk about your experiences going through school and kind of what that was for you.
Okay.
And what led to you becoming the phenomenal educator that you are today and human being and the impact that you're having on the world. And we won't leave anything out.
Great. I'm ready.
We have one rule.
Yes.
No.
No crying.
No
crying in baseball.
We encourage crying, man. If you're not crying, you're not trying. Okay. And that's what I always say about teaching. And so here it is, man. We are looking for complete authenticity and absolute truth and emotional nakedness. And don't censor things. I'm not gonna edit anything, just so you know.
Great.
And so when somebody Googles Tina Sabuco, this is going to come up.
Yes.
And they're going to see every
As
word.
my other podcast.
Yeah. So I want you to think, as we're talking, just keep in mind, everybody, everywhere, forever, this is documented and we'll hear every word. So we need the true you.
I'm here.
Did you bring her?
I'm here, baby.
All right. Now, I'm ready.
All right.
I'm fired up. This is the one I've been looking forward to. I look forward to all of them.
As have I.
All right, I'm going to kick it off. You ready?
I'm ready.
We are rolling. Feel it? You feeling it?
It's coming.
Let's hit
Here
it.
it's coming.
Tina Sabuco is in the house.
Yeah, baby.
Teach Like a Rockstar podcast, episode number 6. That's the American Idol pose.
I know.
And the voice and everybody else.
Yeah.
And so we have Tina Sabuco in the house. We're going to talk about it all. We're going to get to the bottom of things with Tina. And listen, before we get started, keep in mind we have a lot coming up. Teach Like a Rockstar in January. We have in-service dates in Taylorville, Illinois. We have Arnold, Missouri. Also in January, we're coming to Florida. Get ready, Florida. We're coming back for you. Tampa, Fort Lauderdale, Jacksonville.
Floridians in the house.
There you go. Represent. And then also in February we're coming back to Texas with San Antonio and Houston.
Woohoo!
Are you going to come to the Houston show?
When is it?
I don't know the exact
Probably.
date.
I've been to all of the Houston
That's right.
shows.
I'm
a veteran.
Fourth time it will be, right?
Yes, it would be fourth.
Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
And you've sat there and you've participated and you smile and you cry and you have a good time.
I
You
take notes.
You take notes. We still haven't talked about the last one.
I know. I have them still.
All right, so Tina's here. Tina,
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about, you have a company here in Houston, Texas called Arts Alive.
Arts Alive.
And we're going to get to we're going to cover everything. We're going to take you through your timeline of educational impact that you've had on your life and that you have had on the lives of others. And but let's start. Currently, you have a company here in Houston called Arts Alive.
Arts Alive.
And tell us about it.
Well, I think it would be better for my puppet self to tell you about it a little bit. Don't you think?
I had a feeling going to bring the puppet self. The alter ego.
The alter ego.
And this is how she orders at the drive-thru, by the way.
Yes, every time. Hello, Hal. This is exactly how I talk. This is my puppet self, Tina, with her Arts Alive shirt on, waving to the camera. She likes to wave. And yes, well, I'll have my little puppet Tina here for a minute to tell you about Arts Alive, which started in 1994. Mm-hmm. So we are in our 18th year, which is amazing. And I started Arts Alive all by myself and did it for 2 years. Tina wants to go over here. Hi, Tina. And
I think it's freaking me out.
We all have puppet selves at Arts Live, by the way. I started it in Houston because I saw there was a need, especially in the preschool sect, for the arts, creative drama, creative movement, music, dance, visual art, all together, which is called integrated arts, which is what we do. And I just started presenting at conferences, and pretty soon people were coming up to me and saying, I've been looking for you for a long time. And I'm like, I'm here. And then I would start to teach at their school. And in the first year, I had about 4 schools, and now we have about 40 different schools where we teach. And throughout the 40 schools, like at certain schools, we're there 3 days a week, 9 to noon, and we have their whole school involved. In some schools we have once a month, every other month, whatever people want us to do.
And so let's look at one let's say it's an elementary school.
Yes.
And let's say, because I know you guys do some during school time and also some after school time. Let's say it's an after school time, and let's say we have 30 kids in the class. What might a typical class look like? First of all, how long is it?
Anywhere between a half an hour to an hour, depending on what the school wants and the age of the children. And a typical class would, if somebody was just coming in and watching, what they would see is all of the children, including the teachers, going through a story that I've created that has a beginning, middle, and an end, and is interwoven with music. And we are all being different things throughout whatever the theme is. For instance, if the theme was fun on the farm, which is one of ours, we would be going to Grandpa's farm, and when we go there, we would be traveling through by train, by plane, by automobile, and we would be becoming all of those things. And then when we get to the farm, we're the lambs, we're the mice, we're the cats. And the difference when people start to talk about what we do, the difference between, like they say, oh, so you're putting on a play. It's not product oriented, it's process oriented. So everything that we're doing right at the moment is the most important thing. And we are all becoming those things. It's not like you're playing a sheep, you're playing a mouse. We are taking the children through an experience so that they feel wonderful about their bodies, feel wonderful about working together with other children. They are experiencing whatever the theme is. So, of course, they're learning about that theme. But more important, they are just feeling good about themselves and having a wonderful wonderful time and playing and dancing and singing.
I've always said, because, it's not a secret that my kids have been through many Arts Alive classes and experiences, all the way from Baby Boogie, Baby Boogie, which is a class for parents and babies, and all the way through elementary school. And so when people would ask me, because at that time, I had not actually seen the class, but they would say, well, what's it about? And I would always say the same thing. I said, I don't know, but both my kids come out of that classroom and they are happy. They're excited. They've got a really cool sticker and they're sweaty and they talk constantly about what they did in the class.
Thank you.
And so it's just a beautiful thing for a parent because, to come from an educational experience, a lot of times when the door opens and kids leave and, an educational setting, the head's down, the shoulders are slumped, you see the shallow breathing, there's, the dragging the feet, but to come from the Arts Alive experience, these kids, all the way into the car.
Every time.
Into the house nonstop, and so it's just a wonderful, wonderful, beautiful thing. And so let's go back. And first of all, there is about 5% is the research. About 5% of the people that will experience this interview will watch it on video. Everybody else is going to download it and listen to it on their phone or their iPod through iTunes or something like that. But the 5% or less that watch it on video will see that you and I are sitting here wearing pajamas.
Yes.
We should probably cover that.
I know. I didn't think about that at all. I love it.
No. I think this is why, because when Yvonne was on, Yvonne Taylor at YvonneWrites.com, and
her son has been in our class.
Xander is an Arts Alive alum.
Yes.
And when she was on, she was describing it to somebody else about what it was like, and she said, or maybe I don't know who said it, but she said, well, it's just like a couple of girls chatting at a slumber party. So when we heard that, we said, well, hey, let's have a slumber party.
Here's our slumber party.
Doing it.
Yep.
And we have matching jammies on.
I thought that I should bring a little cold cream or something for us to have on our faces, but I didn't go that far today.
I'm glad.
That would have been pretty.
Yeah. All right. So let's go back and see how this happened, because what you do is very unique, and your life and how you live your life is very unique, and I think it's probably based on the sum of all your experiences growing up. And so you grew up in the land of the red buck, my friend.
Yes.
Which is
Escanaba, Michigan, and Upper Michigan.
Upper Michigan.
Which is not, you have to do the mitten, not down here. It's Upper Michigan.
And what's that called? Those people up there, they're called something.
Youpers.
Youpers.
Youper is U, upper for U, and P, peninsula, the Upper Peninsula. So that's the UP, and then now we're Youpers.
Right. Mm-hmm. It's freaking cold up there.
It's very cold.
Right. I'm not down with that.
I do miss that sometimes.
You miss the cold.
As you can tell this morning when I was all bundled up, and it's only 44 here. But
here's my theory. If you can't live in an area basically naked, you probably shouldn't be living there.
Yeah, you don't want to be up there then.
No. All right. So you were born.
I was born in 1960.
Mm-hmm.
The only child to Evelyn Marie Sabuco and Ramo Sabuco.
I love Evie.
Yes, and thank you. Because he's saying that because he wants me to start crying.
That's
right
not true.
now.
I just love her.
Thank you. And my grandmother Ida. We all four of us lived above a restaurant that they all ran called Marco's Restaurant. It was a 24-hour restaurant. And we had big banquet rooms. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because the banquet rooms had a stage.
Uh-oh.
And you can see where this is going. Uh-huh. And pretty much I would be up there with microphones and piano and dancing around. And then the employees of the restaurant would hear me say, "Come watch me." And so they'd peek their head in. Nice, Tina. Okay, goodbye. We have to go back to work.
Right.
So yeah, that's where it all started.
All right. So just to sum it up, we have a 24-hour. Well, you call it a restaurant. It's a 24-hour theater.
Theater, yes.
Customers, patrons and attendees at the theater, 24 hours a day with a stage and a microphone. All for you. This is in your mind. They happen to be eating.
Right. Well, the people that were eating weren't where I was. Uh-huh. I didn't entertain the masses. Although I did. I'd go out with the customers and draw them pictures and just visit with them, all the time.
Right.
So there was
Only
people.
Child.
There were people around all the time.
Right.
Only child.
Only child. And so this was your family, and the customers, all part of the family, all
Yep.
part of the daily experience,
Yes.
24 hours a day.
People that work there, right?
And so at night, you lived above the restaurant.
Yes.
And would you come down at night as well and kind of see what's going on and who's there?
Well, what was fun was ever since I can remember being very little, this was, back in the day when there wasn't a lot of things around to do, like after the bars closed,
Yeah.
which was big in the UP, and probably still is.
It's cold, man.
Right, I know, you have to be doing something, keeping warm. And so the bar crowd would come in starting about 1:30 or 2. And sometimes there were so many people that my mom would wake me up to come downstairs to hold the door so that the people couldn't keep coming in, which is funny thinking about, a 7-year-old
Right, yeah.
holding
It's
the
a different
door so
world.
all the
Yeah.
people can't come in.
And so your family owned the House of Pies, basically.
Sort of.
Which here in Houston, that's
The,
where kind of
the Italian House of Pies.
And so here in Houston, that's where people go after everything,
yes.
after closing time. And so after the bars closed, they would go to Marco's
Marco's
and
restaurant.
there would be your family running this thing 24 hours a day.
Yes.
That's amazing childhood.
Yeah. And other fun things, of course, would be that I learned how to ride my bike and roller skate in the banquet rooms. So, they were big. So my friends and I would, run around and play on the stage and ride our bikes and roller skate. And one of those crazy cars where you have big wheels, that was very fun. And we would play, there was a big bar back there. So we'd pretend bar and I'd take the pizza dough and make cookies and think that they should taste like cookies if they were shaped like cookies. And but they didn't ever.
You had the coolest house to go to.
I
all the
did
kids.
have the coolest house to go to. Yes.
And so you were in elementary school and all this is happening. And then, and how are you doing academically in elementary school?
Yeah, amazing. Of course, I was very into school and loved my teachers and stayed after school to do everything all the time with the teachers, erase the board, put the new stuff on. And
You were that kid.
Yes, I was that kid.
Sunshine.
Yes, sunshine.
Sitting in the front
Yep,
row.
Yeah. And I went to a
Raising your
Catholic-
hand for questions you don't even know the answer to. You just want to try.
Yeah, but I did know the answer. Went to Catholic school from first grade through 8th grade.
How was that? I've heard some stories about Catholic school.
Great, I loved it.
Yeah.
I had fun. I loved the whole atmosphere of everything. And it was a pretty small school. From 5th to 8th grade, we had 3 homerooms. So how many that is? About 60 some kids in each grade.
And you were successful academically. And can you think back to some of those teachers that you've had? Maybe there's one or two, maybe in particular, that you can conjure up in your mind that really have had that lasting impact. That we've all, for not all, but lots of teachers have had that one or two where you can look back and you can think. It wasn't just how they taught, but who they were as a person for you, where you would walk into the classroom and then immediately you would have that emotion, there they are, or for me, I can remember coming down the hallway and turning the corner and I would see them standing outside the classroom, and then that emotion would kind of fill your body, and your soul. Who was that for you?
Well, 3 come to mind. When I was in 2nd grade, Mrs. Druding was my first lay teacher, and it was just so, she had a bouffant hair and, looked like the Barbie doll Midge, and she was just really young and full of life and fun. And I just remember learning cursive in her class. And then in 3rd grade, Miss Fredericks was wonderful because she was also just young and exciting, and she would let us it just seemed like it wasn't all about rules, and it was a little more kid oriented. And there was the highlight of 3rd grade was she had this big caveman stuffed animal that I don't know where she found it or why it was that. I don't remember that anymore. But she brought it into the classroom and she said that whoever was, I guess, good that day or whatever, got to have it on their desk. And they needed a name for it. And she put out everybody's name in the hat, and I got chosen and was very excited to be able to name the little caveman. And so right around that time, we had a family cat that my dad had brought home, and he named the cat, and he named the cat Martini. And so because that was in my mind, I said that I wanted to name the caveman Mr. Martini Man. And she let me name it Mr. Martini Man, which is so funny to me that, she wasn't like, oh, no, we can't.
Easy. First of all, just the fact that we have a caveman in the Catholic school is one thing. And then the fact it's named Mr. Martini Man.
Right.
This is awesome.
But I was very excited to be able to name the little caveman guy.
Yeah, and I think it's so interesting. This is what I always try to talk to teachers about, is like those little things that she probably thought on the spur of the moment. How are we going to name this? Well, tell you what, let's put everybody's name in the hat. She made the whole thing up in the moment, and probably today doesn't even remember how. She probably remembers it's Mr. Martini Man, but how it even got the name. But for you, it's such a moment that's
it was the moment of third grade for me.
Yeah. Powerful. And then what's also interesting is when we look at what we remember in terms of the content, it's always attached to those moments where we can remember lots of stuff. I bet you can remember lots of content from the third grade and the things that you learned, the things you did in class, all because of that one experience you had with Mr. Martini Man and how it affected you emotionally. Lasts forever.
Right.
Forever.
Right. Powerful. And then I've saved the best for last, Mr. Saracen. Who actually I just this morning opened his Christmas card that he sent me. So we're still in contact this many years ago. I was privileged to have him twice at Holy Name, 5th grade and 8th grade, because he had changed from 5th to 8th. So that was wonderful because he was my favorite teacher ever. And my favorite Mr. Saracen story also has to do with the stuffed animal. I just thought about that.
It's all making sense.
I know, isn't it? It all comes full circle. Yes. So every month, every homeroom had a mass, their special mass in the little chapel. And he would always have a theme to his mass, which was great because we all got to participate in it. And the one that I remember was it was something like the theme was all creatures great and small, or something about animals. And so he said to everybody, if you would like to bring a stuffed animal to put on the altar for this, please do. Well, of course, since I already told you I was the one who wanted to be the best and do the best, I think that I probably brought about 16 of them, including this cat that I had, this white stuffed cat that was huge. I mean, I can still see the altar, all of the stuffed animals. It was great. And so he made a big impact. It was just great that he let us do whatever we wanted to do, Yeah. Sure, put all the stuffed animals on the altar.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think when teachers let go of that whole domineering, this is my class, I am the teacher, you are the students, you will do there's rules on the board.
Right.
The rule 16C says that you know what I mean?
Stuffed animals.
Right.
You can see I came prepared.
Yeah. But and what happens is, when a teacher like that really does have that family that we talk about, we strive to have in our classroom, that family where people love each other and they want to be there. And the kids are contributing ideas, and he's thinking, yeah, great idea. Why not? Yeah, put them all up there. You know what I mean? Powerful.
Also, he was very into art, and he did a lot of art with us. But he also it's like, just like you said, it's weird what you remember. He brought somebody in that showed us how to make our origami cranes. And I can still to this day make an origami crane because I learned in 5th grade how to do it. So, it's like, why do I remember that?
You know why it is? Because you loved it, and you loved him, and you loved the class. And somebody else with a different experience in a different kind of classroom with a different kind of teacher, and somebody had an origami crane day. They have no clue to this day how to make an origami crane, because that hole was such a negative thing, and they don't think about it, but subconsciously when they think, or they don't, I don't want to make that. It's ridiculous, because it doesn't bring back those emotions of love and family and connection and significance and all that you have. And so I can see some themes in your life based on like the theme.
Right.
The theme of you have themes. You're all about themes
in my life. I know.
So when you have a dinner party, I think the first dinner party I ever went to at your house, I can remember, was in honor of, I can't think of his
Charles
name.
Schultz.
Charles Schultz, right?
Yes, that was a good one.
And so we went to your house for dinner. It was our first time to ever make it to the list of the Tina Sabuco dinner party.
Well, if I can interrupt you.
Please.
The way that happened was my New Year's resolution that year was I had twofold. I wanted to cook more, and I wanted to have more intimate gatherings instead of having big parties. And so I paired it with once a month. We had all of our friends. We put our names in a hat. Now that's going to make me cry too. I love it. Thank you, Miss Fredericks, for that. And we would pick names of either single or couple people, and there would only be 6 because our table could only hold 8. And so you guys came up, Georgia and Hal, and all the people. What we wanted was nobody really knew each other. I mean, they could, depending on who got picked. And so continue.
And so the dinner. I remember some things about the dinner. First of all, it was it a stew?
Yes.
Some sort of a stew.
Like dog food.
And it was served in a dog bowl. So
Yes.
there were stainless steel dog bowls at everybody's place setting. And there was a nest.
The nest was Woodstock's nest, and it was the salad.
The salad, right. And it looked like a nest.
Right.
Yeah, that a bird should be in, but we're going to eat this thing.
Right.
And what else was there?
And then I don't remember now if it was a coincidence or not, but he passed, and I can't remember if I did it because he passed, or I just was doing it and then it was weird that he passed. But the last, he was retiring, I believe, and his last Sunday comic strip I used for the placemat.
Right.
And that was cool. That was like one of those last minute, let's do this.
Yeah.
And when everybody came, they chose what character they were and had a little name tag with it.
That's right. And I remember sitting there talking to my wife and whispering, we could never have these people over to our house. What possibly could we do?
That's great.
And you went to junior high, middle school and junior high, and still successful academically.
Yes.
And now you have some opportunities for theater and dance and all those kinds of electives, music, choir, those kind of performance-y things. Did you participate in all that?
Well, that started before then. I was taking dance from when I was 3, started then. And then I was going to say as soon as my feet could reach the pedals, but even before then, I took organ. And then piano and flute, the bells, throughout grade school. And then, you have to start picking and choosing when you get a little older. So I dropped all of the musical instruments and continued with dance. And about in 8th grade, I really started thinking about I liked theater. And so all through high school, I was what they called a drama freak, and did the drama thing, and mostly was behind the scenes. Another teacher comes into play there, Peter Adamini. He was our drama teacher and amazing, and he passed fairly recently, and at his celebration of his life, one of the things I talked about was that he knew me before I knew me, because he always he always wanted me to be the assistant director or the choreographer, and I love doing that, but I never got to hardly be on stage. And so it's who I am, more so, the creator of things instead of the puppet, the person on the stage. And I always used to laugh that in The Sound of Music, how many roles are in The Sound of Music, so many, and that I had the one non-singing role. That I got to be the Frau Schmidt, the housekeeper, little role, because of course I was also ADing and choreographing, and I just loved him for talk about somebody who let it be student centered and not all what he wanted, and he was just there. I mean, so many of us still talk so fondly about him because he was our rock, the anchor of all of us in high school. So I continued with dance and drama in high school. Yeah. In answer to your question.
Yeah, and so it's those kinds of teachers in those, especially in those elective classes where there's so much time invested in a rehearsal of a performance and putting on this play and the production and the emotion that goes into the opening night and then every night and the close and all that follows, and you process it, and then here we go, and you gear up and you go again. Those, there's so many life lessons in there in terms of responsibility and playing your part on that team, and also leadership roles like you had. And in your life, it's obvious that you've taken those lessons, and to this day,
still learning the lessons and still teaching them too.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you went to his what you called a celebration of his life. Mm-hmm. Is that code for funeral or?
They didn't have it right away. No, it's not code for funeral, because usually a funeral is about like the burial of a body. Mm-hmm. I guess I'm not totally correct, but usually more of a celebration of the life, like I did with my mom. It takes place later sometimes, and I think it was a year later, because they wanted everybody to be able to come back to the theater, and he didn't even live there anymore, but we of course had it there.
Lots of people showed up.
Yes, a whole auditorium full. Yes,
beautiful. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Yes, sometimes I wish we should really do those things while people are alive.
I know. Yes.
How awesome would that be?
Well, he did. He went through kind of a long illness, so a lot of us got to chat with him on the phone and visit with him and tell I made a point to tell him how important he was.
When did you know that you were gonna professionally follow in those kinds of footsteps and work with children and put on productions and themes and picking names out of hats and games?
When I was 3, of course. Well, it's a twofold answer. I just always, everything I did was that, I wanted to be a ballerina, and then there was a brief period of time where I wanted to be a police officer, because I thought, but the kind I wanted to be was, and this was a couple months in 8th grade, I wanted to be a police officer because I wanted to be an undercover one that would like be in the park and be, arresting people for whatever, right. Kind of thing. But that was brief. And
I just assumed it was because you saw West Side Story.
No. But I would say when I was in first year of college, my first semester, I was in education and wanted to be a kindergarten teacher. And all of my friends were in the drama department, and they were all saying, you're gonna change your major. You're gonna change your major. I'm like, no. And then of course, by semester end, I was a drama major. Mm-hmm. And I just felt I loved the teaching part of it, but I wanted to do more than, I felt like I just wanted to do more. And so in undergraduate school, which is also called Northern Michigan University, in Marquette, Michigan, I did the drama thing still and a little bit of dance still. And my senior year, I took a creative drama / children's theater class, and I knew that was it. That was like when I found out that you could major in that, and go to grad school just for that. I was like, yeah, where do I sign up? So, and then I went to grad school. That's how I came to Texas, UT Austin, to be major in children's theater and creative drama, and that's what I have my master's in.
And so that was your idea for your profession.
Yes.
I'm going to make a living, possibly.
Yep.
And work with children and through theater and teach all these life lessons that you learned on stage and backstage and in front of the stage.
Right.
And you're going to pass that on to your kids that come through your programs.
And when I was in grad school, I was actually doing creative drama and children's theater, which for those people that don't know, creative drama is more what I do now, the process-oriented part of it. And children's theater is directing big people for little people, for families. And I was doing both, and I loved both. And I actually started writing my thesis on the children's theater part of it, and was having a hard time because I was like, who's going to read this? Who cares? Who cares about this production I'm doing, this one moment in time? And so I changed and did more the creative drama, which was the base. My thesis was the basis for Arts Alive. At the time, I didn't know, but it was the first 10 lesson plans basically. And I would think that right then really was the time where I was like, no, this is what I really want to do. I want to be in education, not on the stage or behind the stage.
And so the whole Arts Alive concept comes to you as a result of the process of writing the thesis.
Yes.
And when did you know that this was a company? This was a business that you're going to do?
I was in Austin, and I was working on the thesis, and I had a professor who was big in my life. I like that I can bring them all in here. They're all coming in. Dr. Betty Vreeman, who I was working for a company that was a dance company called Dance Associates, and we would go to preschools and we would teach ballet, tap, jazz, tumbling, and I was doing that to support myself throughout all of my grad school. And she came to watch one of my classes, and she said, what you're doing actually has a name. It's called integrated arts, because I was teaching the dance, but I was teaching it through creative drama. There was visual art involved. There was, of course, music involved. Everything was happening. And when I was writing my thesis, I was talking about, of all the teachers, my classes, had the most children, had the most boys in it. The kids were retaining. Every week they would come and say, is it circus week? Is it garden week? And that was something that I was just doing. So then I started teaching the other teachers in the company. And it was when I was doing all that, it was like, hey, this is kind of something that I'm doing, that I'm kind of making up. I'm just like we all do. We take from all different parts of our lives. And I was just really excited about doing that. And when we moved to Houston, I was like, let's do it. Let's just keep doing this. So that's kind of how it started. I was still writing my thesis when I came to Houston. I was, even though I wasn't in school anymore, I was kind of, how that goes, finishing everything out. And as soon as I was finished, and I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do now? And it was like, well, I'm doing it. So that's how it happened. I just kind of fell into it.
And it's a combination of Arts Alive, your work with schools and children, and also your work with teachers on how they can incorporate some of the strategies in their classroom.
Yes.
And for me, that seems like such an when a teacher first hears this, oh my gosh, here's one more thing I got to do. Now, I got to learn all this stuff so I can communicate my content. But it's not really that big of a undertaking.
It's just, yes, exactly. It is just the icing on the cake kind of thing. It is adding one more ingredient. It's
It's an
not.
ingredient.
It's not a whole
It's
different
not another
recipe.
cake.
No, it's not another cake. It's not a whole new recipe. It's just
In
another
your work
ingredient.
with teachers, do you find that as soon as you get started, there's that feeling of, okay, here we go. Here's another thing we got to do this year.
Well, yes, there's some,
At
you
fir-
can
at first.
see them out there.
first, yeah,
yes,
sure.
yes. But not everybody, some are coming in and they're, the workshop or the in-service or whatever, they're gung-ho. And then there are other ones that are like, I don't want to learn anything else. I'm done. I'm just here because I have to be.
Right.
And then, as you know, there's just such a gamut. There's, people that aren't in it as a profession. They're just doing it. And so, they're not that interested. But 10 minutes and they're all interested.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Right. Mm-hmm. And we see that, in my workshop too, where
Right.
everybody's like, well, okay, what is this? What are we
Right.
doing here?
Right.
And then within, it takes a few minutes. We have people in the back row and they have the newspaper in the bag and they're thinking they're going to get it out and read their newspaper and they're going to grade papers and text. But 10, 15 minutes in, they realize, oh, wait a minute.
This is something different.
This is something a little different.
This is more fun.
And yours is that way too.
All the time.
All the time. And so when, let's say you have a fourth grade teacher sitting and you're doing an in-service at a school and there's a fourth grade teacher and he's sitting there. He comes in and he's sitting in the center of the room. And the first thing, and he sees bubbles and he sees puppets and there's music
Streamers.
playing and there's streamers and tambourines. And his first thought is, oh my gosh, I have to teach math. What on earth is why do I need any of this information? How is this going to help me? Is there any way that you can communicate without going through a whole 6-hour workshop on how some of this content that you have is going to help him get math concepts into the head of the kid?
Yes. All of the things that I always tell people, it's not like we are coming in to try to get them to teach an Arts Alive class. We do that. What our workshops are about is to share our philosophies and our methodologies so that they can pick and choose and use them however they want. There might be a moment that any teacher can pick up on that would totally change the lives of all of their students, or there could be a whole half hour, 15 minutes of things that we do. So we do a lot of different things so that each teacher can take away what is best for their classroom. I don't know about the fourth grade teacher in this case, but one of the fun things we do that is paired with math is the ants go marching. And in the beginning, we're all marching by ourselves, but then we have to march 2 by 2. So 1 + 1 is 2, figure that out. And then, of course, you don't go from 2 to 2 to 4 to 4. That would be easy, getting 2 groups together, but you have to march in groups of 3. So every time I do this with children, it's just so great just to see their minds. Oh, there's the one that's pairing everybody up.
Right.
There's the one that's just standing there waiting to be paired. There are other ones that are trying to figure it out. They're not really sure. And then, of course, there's the teacher that wants to do it for them.
Right.
Not an Arts Live teacher, but sometimes there's a teacher in the room, and we'll always have to say, it's okay. Just, it doesn't matter how long it takes them. It's all about the process. And it's interesting with teachers, a lot of times, they want to get to the end result and they want to get on to the next thing. And we talk about that in our workshops, that when we are doing this, the most important thing is what the kids are trying to figure out for themselves and that moment. It's not to get to the grasshoppers that are next. If we never get to the grasshoppers, that's fine. And we talk about that in Arts Live, and when I'm helping my own teachers, yes, we have a lesson plan with 15 different things that we can do, and if you only get to 2 of them that day, it's okay. It's what's happening, and maybe you're going to have to, in my case at one of my schools, work on the ants go marching for 15 minutes, even though it's a 3 to 5 minute song. because that's what they're learning. They're learning addition and multiplication. Hey, that's a hard one to say. Mr. Saracen didn't teach me how to say that. I just got to bring stuffed animals in. But so I think that might answer your question.
Yeah, and I think for me, that is probably my weakness, and your strength is the process of it all and being in the moment. For me as an educator, I have goals, and we're going to get there, and we're going to get there my way, baby. I'm great at the whole family thing. I'm great at community in my classroom and a place where kids come and love and want to be there. But I'll tell you where I really learned this is I had the pleasure to go on my daughter's field trip. When she was a third grader, she was in Sarah Cotner's class. And by the way, Sarah Cotner is an amazing teacher.
Yay, Miss Cotner.
Yes, and we went to what the third
Downtown,
graders.
right?
The third graders got to plan a downtown trip in downtown Houston. They had to do everything. Had to figure out how they're going to get there. So they had to get a bus schedule, where the bus stop was that we were going to walk to. They had to figure out how to get to the bus stop, get on the bus, where the bus was going to drop us off, how we were going to get to downtown on this bus, and then how to get underneath. In Houston, there's a series of tunnels under downtown where you can get around downtown under tunnels. Which buildings they wanted to go to the tallest building. They wanted to go to the tallest glass building. There was a certain restaurant they wanted to eat at. So they had to figure out all this. And so it started. And I was the chaperone, as me, Miss Cotner, and the third graders. And we got to the bus stop, and Cotner and I are just chatting it up. And we got on the bus and got downtown easily, no problem. And then the first stop was the map of the downtown tunnels, which is complex. And I'm really trying to figure this thing out. And she's not even looking at it. And I'm like, Cotner, look at this thing, man. These kids. And sure enough, it takes me a while, but I get the thing figured out. And then the kids go in the wrong direction.
And
I'm like, whoa. And she grabs my hand, puts it down, and shushes me. Shh. This is their trip. Okay. And I'm like, no, we're going to, like, that thing, well, it would take us hours. It's all right. And sure enough, we walk.
I have to say that a lot.
We walk about 20 minutes. I'm like sweating. I'm holding my head. I'm trying to hold my mouth shut, and it's driving me crazy. And the girls, and the boys are just chatting it up and being third graders.
La, la, la.
And don't you know, about 25 minutes, one of them says, hey, wait a minute. They see a shop on the downtown tunnels. This isn't on the map. And they all reconvene and they regroup, and we must be going in the wrong direction. And we head back the other way. And you know what? The whole thing worked out fine. And they got to go every place on the stop. But it was such a challenge for me to corral this whole thing. Or even just give them hints, where I act like they're figuring it out, but I'm really, asking questions in such a way to make them figure it out,
right?
To let them do it naturally and organically,
the right way,
right? Let's all put our thinking caps on right now,
right? Well, not only do I come across that with teachers and workshops and in services, or actually more so, when we're in a classroom and there is a classroom teacher with us. But my own teachers, even when, we've been talking about it for a while, it's a hard habit to get out of, because we all think as adults we know everything and we're right, and that, our way is the best way, and that we have an agenda and we're in control. When, if you go in the direction that they're going, it's going to be so much more exciting and educational for everybody. Our philosophy at Arts Live is go with the flow and keep the flow going. That's right. And I find that I do that in my life. It's not that I thought, I do this in my life and I put it in my work. It's the opposite. It just happened. And so with I'll have teachers, my own teachers, where I have to, just walk, if we're team teaching, and I have to just walk up to them, just like you said, and put their, it's okay. That same class that I was telling you about from School for Young Children, Sheila McBrin is the director there, and yay, Sheila, love you. She has the same philosophy as I do, and just, let it go. And in Arts Alive, it's a school for children with language learning differences. And there's a wide variety of kids there. And we have 12 in a classroom for Arts Alive. And The youngest child is about late 5 in this particular class, and the oldest is about 7. They don't go, it's according to ability, not like how we think of grades. And we were just making a circle. And it took us a very long time because there were lots of different ways to make circles. What I wanted was to stand in a holding hands circle. And I was actually singing a song about that. And there were some kids that were doing this. It's
circle.
correct.
Yeah.
They're making a circle. There were kids that were turning around in circles. And then finally we got to the point where we were standing in a holding hand circle, but it wasn't there were like 3 of them. And just to get the children to understand what was in my mind, that yes, that was the goal, because I was going with the flow, but I had to keep the flow going. And in order to do the thing we were going to do, we needed to be in a sitting circle. And in order to get in the sitting circle, we had to stand. Because there was no just sitting in a circle. They had to have the physical holding. Even though it took a long time, they were still all learning about the different kinds of circles there are and the kind that I wanted. And we finally did eventually get to making the circle. And what's interesting about this class is Arts Alive teachers are filmed periodically, and that's the class where I'm always filmed every other week. Filmed and recorded, and it's a 45-minute class, and I always have, just like what you were talking about, I have the goal that I want. I'm being recorded for my own teachers so that we can watch each other and learn. And since it's the only one that I do with this particular lesson plan, I always want to get as much as I can get in. And so it's always funny that this is the school where it took us 10 minutes just to make the circle.
Right.
But then I think, okay, well, my teachers are still learning. They're learning a different lesson here. They're not necessarily going to see everything that I wanted to do, but it's going with the flow and keeping the flow going.
So you record your teachers and yourself
Yes.
to model a lesson, but also even critique yourself in front of your teachers.
Yes.
And then your teachers record themselves teaching classes, and you all go back and share and process and
Yes.
offer constructive feedback on each other, which is such an interesting thing because that's so rarely done in
We
the
do it a
traditional
lot.
classroom. And education is such an interesting environment for that kind of personal feedback, where like if you're in a corporate or sales environment, let's say you're in sales and your job is to sell cell phones. Well, the first thing you would do is seek out the best cell phone salesperson on staff and go watch what they do.
Right.
And do that.
Right.
And then after you did that and you didn't get the same results, you would go find that person. Hey, can you come watch me
Right.
and tell
me what I did wrong.
what I did wrong and how come I don't sell as many cell phones as you sell. But in education, for some reason, we get locked up in our classrooms. We lock the door.
Right.
We cut out the orange construction paper to fit over that skinny window with the chicken wire. We tape it up there, and this is my domain, baby. Don't you even, And we try to do our own thing. And I think there's a lot of reasons for it. But one is it starts from the very first day, where this is like one of the only professions on the planet where the day you start, your first day in the classroom, no experience, you are expected to produce the same results as the 30-year veteran teacher right next door.
Wow.
It's and that is a scary thing.
Yeah.
And by the way, the bottom line isn't cell phones and dollars. We're talking about children's lives here.
Right. Right.
It is such a huge responsibility that it's so daunting that sometimes we don't. I feel like that those first year teachers they don't want to be outed as not knowing.
Right.
And even though we know they don't, of course you shouldn't know. How could you even know?
Right.
You didn't learn it in college. You're going
Right.
to learn it right here in the classroom with your
Right.
kids, and you
Right.
need help. And for me, I think that those schools that really perform at such a high level are those schools. They have that open feeling, and teachers are going in and out of classrooms to help and share, and they're switching classrooms, and they collaborate, and they meet, and they talk about kids that they share in common. We just don't see that enough. I don't know why.
I think that it's imperative. What we learn from each other and watching each other is so important. Of course, what you're learning in the classroom is important, but if you if, like, let's say one of my new teachers is experiencing something, they might not even understand what they're experiencing unless I can, say, and this happened because of this, or, you chose this path, and had you chosen this one, you might have had these results. Because if you don't have somebody there saying that, you would never know.
And teaching is such an emotional thing, and you get caught up in the drama of it all.
Right.
And it's so hard to think clearly and logically when you're in this story that's happening and you're creating in your classroom, that you miss the little cues. You miss the kid that, and you see the movement of the hand, the confusion, but it doesn't really register because there's something going else right here.
Right. Or 20 other million things
exactly,
going on.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, I taught at a school where they tried a professional development exercise where what they did, they offered teachers the opportunity for me to come to their classroom, and I had 2 periods. They gave me 2 periods a day, and we had about 200 teachers in the school, where I could they could just request that I come, and all I would do is fill out a feedback form. It was all positive, all ideas. And I said, I'm not, there's nothing negative here. And I would leave all the notes there. And I don't report to the principal. I don't report to anybody. It's just me and teachers. Mm-hmm. And all you have to do is let me know, and I'll come by. And I want to say,
I remember you talking about
this. It might maybe 4,
mm-hmm.
4 teachers ever. Mm-hmm. Said, hey, yeah, come by my class.
Right.
And believe me, I could walk down the hallways and I could see what was going on in the classroom. But, people just for some reason didn't want the feedback. And I think because it's such a daunting responsibility we have, with trying to form these lives of the children, that I don't know. I'm still confused. I'm still confused by the whole thing.
Well, I think part of it is fear. Fear of taking a risk, fear of change, fear of being judged, mm-hmm. fear of that you're doing something wrong, fear of that you've been doing something wrong your whole life and never knew it.
Right.
You know what? And I don't think that people are consciously thinking that. I just think that it's a subconscious kind of thing.
Just doesn't feel good.
Right. That is a resistance with, a lot of people with new things. They of being judged. I think that has a lot to do with it. And we're not. I mean, in what we're talking about, it's not a judgment. It is a, hand in hand. Let's go in this together.
Professional growth together.
Right.
Hand in hand. Absolutely.
I want to go back to Betty Bremen. You made me think about something regarding being filmed in the classroom, being recorded. The very first time I was ever recorded as a teacher, I was in grad school. I was teaching a creative drama class that was her class, but it was undergraduates. And as a graduate student, we had opportunities to teach here and there. And she invited me to come into her class and teach a lesson plan. And afterwards, we were watching it. And she was the one who taught me, and I still use this with my teachers in Arts Live. When we watched it, I could not say anything negative. I could only say positive things. And we talked about, before I began, what I thought my strengths were. And 2 of my strengths, I don't remember the third, but I do remember 2 of the strengths were that my movement ability, that I felt comfortable in a classroom and movement oriented, and that I could incorporate movement type things in a creative drama, because creative drama doesn't always involve movement, but I felt that it helped. And that the second thing was that my use of music helped as well. So we're watching, and one of the things I'm observing myself doing is I have my hands on top of my head like this a lot. And I'm trying to say positive things. And I just was like, I wonder why I have my hands on top of my head like that. And she's like, oh, you do that all the time. No idea. I had no idea that I do this. And the thing that she taught me is oftentimes our positive things that we say about ourselves, we are self-sabotaging them with something else. So here I am talking about I'm such a mover, and I'm like weighing myself down. And since then I've noticed that I do that. It's like I'm trying to keep my thoughts in my brain. I do that when I'm thinking really hard, or I'm doing something that is new and maybe scary. I find myself doing that sometimes. The other thing was I said I'm good with music. Well, I had my little boom box and I was afraid to move from it because I wanted to control the music, but I didn't have to be there all the time. I mean, turn the music on and so I'm talking about me being good at movement, and here I am glued to the boombox with my hands on top of my head, thinking I'm teaching a great class, and of course there were parts that were great, but I was sabotaging myself with, not moving away from the music, being afraid that I was going to screw something up or whatever. And it just taught me so much. I mean, not only did it taught me the things that I needed to work on as a teacher, but she taught me a whole way to work with others that as I said, we still use when we observe each other and we talk about, what are our strengths and it doesn't happen all the time, but a lot of times we'll see those sabotages come in and they're never upon us from anybody else. They're always,
Sure.
us doing them.
Self-imposed. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I was sitting, listening to you talk and I'm picturing your kids and I'm picturing this it's not an uncontrolled environment, but it is a rules-free environment but that doesn't mean that it's chaotic,
right.
But there's a lot of freedom there for children. And I'm thinking about the schools, especially the public schools that you go to. And I know there's a lot of, I was just at a school recently, in elementary school, where it's so overcrowded. They've set up these aisles. They're lanes they're walking lanes with arrows. And if you're in this lane, it's single file, and you only walk in this lane and you go that way. And this lane comes this way. And I've seen those schools where they have bubbles and tails in the hall, in where the kids have to make the bubbles with their cheeks and they put their hands behind their back and they have to make tails that keeps so you don't touch each other and you don't talk because you can't talk with a bubble.
Oh, just like in real life.
Right, exactly. And so I'm picturing all this, in a lot of it is a control-based thing simply because of sheer numbers of kids and transporting kids through the hallways to get to their large group or their specials classes or just to get a drink or use the bathroom. We have to do it somehow effectively and efficiently. But then these children leave that environment and they cross the threshold of the door and step into your classroom, which is a completely different thing. Do you find it hard for kids to go from your environment and then back into theirs?
Well, I thought you were going to ask the other way around, so that's interesting. I don't think I've ever been asked that question before. I would say no, because we always have a closure in Arts Alive where we come back to where we were when we walked into the classroom. So our closure is often, whatever, we're being lions or dinosaurs or gardeners, and a couple things happen. Sometimes it's we're falling asleep in the garden and we take them through a remembering of everything that we did so that they can kind of think in their minds all the different things that they did. And we might turn the lights off if we have control of the lights. And then in the morning they wake up and they're not in a garden at all. They're here at Garden Oaks Elementary classroom, and they just had a growing garden day with Tina from Arts Alive. Yay! And so we're bringing them back. And I mean, even though you said that our go with the flow and keep the flow going,
yeah.
Even though you said that we don't have rules and that there's chaos. Yes, that's true. Well, there are rules, but it doesn't seem to be a lot of rules for the kids. That I think that when they go back into their classroom, they've had that freedom, which is wonderful, but I think they know where they are. So it's not like they're running around being lions.
Yeah.
Or gardeners.
Right, and kids are resilient, and
although they do sometimes, we know sometimes when they are going out to a playground situation, and we might not even bring them into that, and then they went to sleep. We might do a more celebratory type of closure, and even though they know that they're still, as a child, they're not a lion anymore, when they go out into the class, the playground, they can be playing that they're lions still, just like they were in our class. And I did learn that the hard way about making sure that we're always doing closures, because at School for Young Children, we were being lions one time, and I did not turn them back into kids, and did get a report from the family that they could not turn their child out of being a lion all day long.
It just felt so good.
It was good. And and I learned, it's like, okay, now we're us again.
Right. And I think for most kids, and there's always an exception, but just like there is this emotional conditioning response when they walk into an Arch Alive classroom, the same thing happens when they leave your classroom. There's an appropriate and proper closure. They head back down the hall, they get back into the lane, and they go into their traditional classroom where they're going to do their language arts. And again, as soon as they cross the door, they're back into that mode.
And hopefully, if they are doing language arts right after, they will have so much to choose from in their, let's say they're doing some writing, that's where they get to make up a story. Then they'll have a lot that they just came from where they can be a lion again.
Yeah, a ton of stuff to draw on.
Yes.
One thing I wanted to talk about also is you have this just amazing preparation throughout your life that served as a perfect foundation for what you do professionally and also personally in your life, and through your classes that you've took, and also your parents and how they supported you, taking you to and from dance lessons and letting you perform on stage in the banquet room. And it sounds like you lead your classroom much like they parented you. It's okay to go around and talk to customers and sing them a song and do a performance here and there.
Drama picture.
Right, drama picture. And so that had come full circle when your mom moved to Houston and because she got to an age where a lot of people, well, I guess we all get to an age where we need some help. Right. And of course there's always an option. We can pay somebody to put them in a home, and but what you chose to do is bring her closer. Mm-hmm. Bring her here to Houston. Mm-hmm. And Debbie came to join your family, well, all of our families, all of our friends' families, and to take care of her. And she got to the point where she needed help. She got to a point where and there was that role reversal that a lot of us see, where she took care of you, and we got to the point where now you were going to be her caretaker.
Yes.
And the beautiful thing was about how you took care of her was all that you are and all that you do with your kids in your classroom and all of that. So there was no different. That's exactly how you took care of her. And we would see, and it's a theme day. And here you are with your mom, and it's theme day, and you guys would have costumes on to go to Kroger and do shopping, and to get her hair done. And there she is. At Christmas time, we would have to remove the reindeer antlers from her costume to get her hair done.
Well, yes. And what's so funny is at the celebration of her life, and I had put together a lot of pictures. I didn't actually do it, but I commissioned somebody to take all these pictures. Here's the music I want. Do something with it. And I was sitting there watching it for the first time, luckily not in front of everybody yet. I was just by myself. And I was like, 95% of these pictures were in costume. I really had no idea until I
Believe
saw
me, we all had an idea.
Did.
We knew.
Right. But really, and there were, for the most part, reasons for the costumes. Of course, there were many Halloweens. And then when we carol with your family, of course, we had to be reindeer or angels. And then we went to wonderful things called The Gathering here in Houston, done by Interfaith Care Partners, where churches and synagogues will host people that have Alzheimer's and dementia, which my mom had Alzheimer's. And they would have a theme, every time. And the very first one that we went to when my first moved my mom down here was in September. And of course it was sports oriented. So we got to wear our Packer stuff because my mom was a Packer fan. Yep. She was a cheesehead. And so, from the very first gathering, there was a lot of costumes going on.
Yeah.
Yep.
and it's just, I think it's just like all teachers. It's not what you do. It's who you are, and how you lead your life, and it's not something that you can turn off. It just doesn't stop.
Yeah.
The difference with you is there's just so much dramatic costumes and music and song and dance involved in your teaching that it's nonstop, whether it is with kids in the classroom or dinner parties at your house or taking care of of Evie in her final years. It was such a beautiful thing.
Thank you.
And also, I mean, just an honor and a privilege to be a part of it and watch it, and just I think you're just such a wonderful, beautiful role model for so many people, kids, teachers, community members, and I thank you.
Thank you, Hal. And I love being your neighbor 2 doors down at our homes and also in our office building here.
Absolutely.
We get to be double neighbors.
And can I just say, the absolute most amazing one of 2 goddesses, god mommies of my children. And you talk about a spectacular thing for a kid to have growing up. Tina Sabuco for a godmother? Are you kidding me?
Put your costume on. Aren't you a dinosaur today? Oh, and I did give your son caveman slippers for Christmas.
Yeah, they've been on Facebook. People have commented on his Bigfoot Sasquatch feet. Yeah, and he's riding his bike wearing his Bigfoot Sasquatch feet all over the neighborhood. So, wonderful. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Hal. It was very, very fun. I love you.
I love you. Tina Sabuco, everybody.
Yay!
Yes. Thanks so much. And also, one more time, don't forget, coming up, we have Teach Go Rockstar events in January. A couple of in-services coming to Florida, Tampa, Jacksonville, Fort Lauderdale, and then back home in the Lone Star State.
Yay! Houston!
Houston, and then at La Cantera in San Antonio.
All right.
Yeah, I'll see you there. Front row, right?
Yep.
You never sit in the front row. You're not a front row girl.
That's because I cried too much.
Thank you so much. I love you.
I love you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah.